So what did Alexander the Great, Lil Wayne, and Prince have in common with me? Well, besides music and conquering, epilepsy. So epilepsy is a rare disease, a rare neurological disease, which means it occurs in the brain and throughout the neural circuitry throughout the body. So what happens during epilepsy is basically these circuitries overrun with electrical signals, and this causes a variety of different symptoms in people that have epilepsy. For example, the traditional view of epilepsy is what happens is people fall to the floor, maybe start shaking a lot. Well, that is not the exact catch-all epileptic symptom. Believe it or not, there are a variety of different symptoms that occur with epilepsy. So, with that being said, it occurs in the brain, and when most people think of a brain, what usually comes to mind is the gyral folds. You know, those squishy little lines on top of the brain, the gyral folds. But underneath there's actually an army of synapses and axons going at each other, shooting chemical instructions at light speeds. So what happens is while the brain is shooting these electricity through the signals, sometimes what happens is in folks with epilepsy, they tend to overrun. They go too fast. So the way I like to think about it is kind of like bees. Like I like to think of like the circuitry like bees, where they kind of just like go around, sending signals. But what happens is during epileptic fits, it's kind of like as if you gave those bees like a bunch of coffee, and they just got hyped up on coffee, and then for maybe 2 minutes, they're just going all over the place. You can't stop. And what happens is this overwhelms the body. So with that being said, depending on where in the brain this epilepsy takes place, could affect the type of symptoms you have. For example, let's say you have epilepsy in the occipital lobe. That's exactly where mine occurs. I'll go into my story in a little bit. So what happens with that is basically, if there's a lot of wiring happening in the occipital, you can start seeing things, and that's exactly what happens to me. So the first time I had a seizure, I was basically, I was watching TV, and this is why I learned it's called the sacred disease, and it's pretty interesting, is the fact that I was sitting there, and I want to note that I've never done drugs in my life. I was sitting there, and then all of a sudden I started seeing these orbs, like these little flashes of light that were floating all around me. And ever since sorry, my camera turned off. So anyways, when it comes to me and my story, I learned that epilepsy was called the sacred disease, and now I fully understand why. So the first time I had a seizure, I just want to know I've never done drugs in my life, but the first time I had a seizure was basically I was sitting there, and then all of a sudden I started seeing these flashing lights all over the place. So this is complete unbeknownst to what I usually experience. Is I was just sitting there, and then all of a sudden I just see like these lights just flying by me and all that. So eventually what happened is that overwhelmed me, and it turned into a field of color, like a dimension of color that overtook my body. And when those lights basically encompass my entire visual field, that's when sorry, there's a bunch of trash out there. Oh my god. So anyways, when these lights encompassed my full visual field, what happened is I completely collapsed. So what happened is I got taken to the hospital, and after some tests were done, we found that I had a cavernous hemangioma. And a cavernous hemangioma is a type of brain tumor, right? But it's cool because it's not cancerous, which thank God, that's great. So what happens is cavernous hemangioma is basically a cluster of blood vessels. So they usually happen really, really young. So usually the capillaries and the blood vessels are very, very free forming. But what happens during a hemangioma is they kind of get like tangled. And when they are tangled, they can't send these messages properly, and they sometimes clot. And they clot very slowly. And that's what happened to me. That's my hemangioma. Over the years, this hemangioma clotted into a brain tumor, and it had to be removed. So at first, I didn't believe the doctor that I had a tumor, until I saw the test, until I saw the results, and I actually saw a picture of the tumor. That's when I started to realize, okay, like this is some serious shit. So up until the events of my surgery, I started continuously having these epileptic fits, where I would start seeing just weird things. Like this is what makes me think that a lot of the hallucinations in the history had some merit to them, is the fact that I started seeing things that were just odd. Like it made no sense. Like this one time I had a seizure, and then picture like Times Square, like there was just a lot of people like walking around me, and I didn't know what was going on. It looked like they were like flying through me at high warp speeds. It's ridiculous. It's a lot of people try to. I describe it sometimes to other people that don't understand. It's like some kind of like a psychedelic fit, but there's no psychedelics involved. It's just a fit. Sorry, camera died again. So, anyways, after I started experiencing these symptoms, the doctor decided we got to remove the tumor. So, after maybe like a year of preparation, it finally happened. And was I scared? Not exactly scared. I was more, how can I say this? Excited to just stop this nonsense. The way the doctor described it, the brain surgeon described it, is a very risky surgery. Okay, and it was kind of, like I said, I wasn't worried, I wasn't nervous, but I was kind of wondering what was going to happen. And finally now, I see the results. So, and I understand what he was talking about. So, with that being said, one of the big major problems that I could have had is the fact that I could have gone blind, right? So, since the tumor was in the right occipital lobe, the way our eyes work is pretty interesting. So, the brain registers the left eye on the right side of the brain, whereas the right eye is registered on the left occipital part of the brain. So with that being said, ever since that surgery, these major seizures have stopped. I don't longer see these like 2-minute fits of like people walking by or these strange lights that can't stop. Now, here's the thing that happened after the seizure. Now, I think the biggest problem I could describe is the fact that now, since that little chunk of my brain is gone, there's a part of my visual field that it's always right there. It always moves. There's a part of my visual field that is impaired, but it's not blind. So what happens is I constantly see colors now. It's not that I have one large fit. Now I've sacrificed these large seizures for constant little tiny petite malls. They're called petite malls. These little tiny seizures that focalize in one singular part of the brain. So anyways, how can I say this? So when I see too many bright lights for too long, or maybe I'm too stressed out, or maybe I don't know, this really random sometimes. These colors that I'm always seeing, it's purple, green, it's really weird. They tend to expand. So like maybe like just out of nowhere, like the walls could turn purple, like green, all types of stuff. If a car whizzes by me, the car like turns purple, and it's not the fact that it impairs my vision, and it's not even annoying. It's pretty interesting. It's the curiosity behind this phenomena, and I think that people don't really understand how powerful the brain can be and what it's capable of in this certain in the senses, in the way that affects people with epilepsy. And just visual phenomena is not the only phenomena. Sometimes people smell things. Sometimes people completely fall to the floor, and that is troublesome. And I hope the best for people, but let's move into treatment. So with that being said, since these electrical signals are moving really fast during these epileptic fits, some of the only things that could work are these medications like lamictal and levetiracetam. These are the medications I'm on. So what these specific type of medications go into your bloodstream, and as these seizures happening, and unfortunately this is an all-day phenomena, as these electrical impulses are happening, these how can I say this? They slow down these electrical signals. It's like going back to the bee phenomenon. It's kind of like if these busy bees are like whizzing really fast, all of a sudden these SSRIs are kind of slowing them down. So like it's like as if the bees are like really sleepy and tired. And unfortunately, that's one of the biggest side effects is fatigue. I don't really show it all the time, but you can tell I'm really tired, like almost constantly. I'm just always hyped up. I don't know. It's weird, but I think that's just my personality. Anyways, so with that being said, other things can contribute to this slowing down effect, like marijuana, for example. They found that marijuana has a certain type of similar effect to these lamictal and levetiracetam. They slow down these electrical signals and make them go like a little slower, as opposed to firing a million miles an hour, even more than that light speed. So with that being said, if you have epilepsy, there is hope for you out there. There's a lot of new treatments that are coming out, like for example, like intravenous shock mounts, which is basically like they have these like, picture them as like little batteries. They kind of put a slit and then they put them in there. And what happens is when there's a seizure, it tells the thing to slow down. It like reverse shocks it. Medication is always available, but for some people, especially children, and this is the biggest thing, is like a lot of children have epilepsy. I'm an adult and I can understand. I've already had like a lot of fun in my life, so that's great. But it's ridiculous to see all these children, suffering with disease, and CBD oil helps, which is marijuana extracted, and it calms them down. But at the same time, epilepsy is still one of those neurological diseases that does not have a catch-all cure. And in my opinion, I foresee the cure for epilepsy not being some type of specific medication, but I picture it maybe 20, 30 years, 40 years from down the line, maybe even nanotechnology. Nanotechnology, in my opinion, is going to be the next big revolution, but we can talk about that at a different time. So I'm thankful I'm alive, and I'm thankful that epilepsy has been introduced to my life so I can learn from it and really appreciate everyday things that people take for granted. And on top of that, I get to see very interesting visual phenomena, even though 80% of the time it's unwanted, but 20% of the time it's pretty cool. The whole room turns wacky lights. It's awesome. But thanks. Subscribe. See you later.